Diamonds, glowing symbols of prestige, love, and eternity. When we think of them, we imagine brilliant stones set in rings, markers of commitment, tokens of wealth, of luxury. And yet, behind the sparkle lies a far more complicated and sinister truth. The global diamond trade is not merely about geology and beauty. It is an engineered empire of monopoly, manipulation, and often human suffering. For generations, a small cadre of corporations has centrally shaped the diamond market. These companies didn't just dig stones out of the earth. They built a tightly controlled system, deciding how many diamonds to sell, when to release them, and how to make consumers believe that these stones were rare, when in fact, scarcity was largely manufactured. At the same time, in distant corners of the world, diamonds have financed wars, displaced communities, and degraded pristine ecosystems. This is the story of how the diamond industry became one of the most economically powerful networks on the planet, how it sustains its dominance through control, how it exploits, and how its darkest forces remain hidden from most of us. By the end of this journey, the stone you once saw as pure beauty may look very different. Monopoly and market control. The modern diamond industry takes shape in the late 19th century. Cecil Rhodes, driven by imperial ambition, consolidates diamond mines in southern Africa and founds De Beers. Over time, De Beers becomes the most dominant force in the diamond world, pioneering a business model that goes beyond mining. It becomes a price-setting, supply-managing cartel. At its core lies the Central Selling Organization, CSO, De Beers' mechanism for controlling how rough diamonds enter the market. The company stocks vast quantities of rough stones when demand is weak and releases them strategically when demand is strong. This tight control of supply prevents market gluts, keeps prices elevated, and ensures that diamonds retain their high perceived value. For decades, De Beers controls somewhere between 80 and 90% of global rough diamond supply, a near monopoly. But De Beers doesn't stop there. It shifts its model over time. Rather than simply restricting supply, it begins to drive demand. The famous slogan, "A diamond is forever," isn't just a marketing tagline. It alters the world's cultural fabric. Through savvy advertising campaigns, De Beers ties diamonds to love, marriage, and commitment. This isn't just selling a product, it's shaping a belief system. The company even watches demographic trends like marriage rates and adjusts how many diamonds it releases accordingly, aligning its supply strategy with the world's emotional rhythms. As new diamond producers emerge in Russia, Canada, and Australia, De Beers sees a threat, but it adapts. It evolves from supplier to storyteller, from miner to market maker. The illusion of rarity, once enforced by supply control, now lives in the hearts and minds of consumers. Blood diamonds and conflict economy. Not all diamonds gleam with innocence. In parts of Africa, countries like Sierra Leone, Angola, and the Democratic Republic of the Congo, diamonds have funded brutal wars. These blood diamonds, or conflict diamonds, are mined under the control of rebel groups, who trade them to buy weapons, prolong conflicts, and enrich themselves at the expense of their own people. In Sierra Leone during the 1990s, diamonds were a powerful tool in the hands of armed groups. Child labor, forced labor, and violent exploitation were widespread. The profits from illicit diamond sales financed atrocities. Angola too saw similar dynamics. Rebel movements used diamond mines to fund their activities, creating a cycle of violence tied to the very stones that later appear in global jewelry markets. Meanwhile, De Beers and other companies did business with governments or intermediaries in war zones, creating moral and financial entanglements that fueled exploitation. To counter this crisis, the diamond industry, under international pressure, establishes the Kimberley Process Certification Scheme around the year 2000. The Kimberley process requires participating countries to certify that exported diamonds come from legitimate, conflict-free sources. And in some ways, it works. Overt rebel-funded diamonds drop significantly in official statistics. However, the system has major limitations. the Kimberley process does not reliably address all human rights abuses. It narrowly focuses on diamonds that finance armed conflict, not those mined under oppressive labor regimes, environmental exploitation, or state violence. Moreover, origin tracing can be murky. In sorting and cutting centers, diamonds from different sources are often mixed, making certification ambiguous. Critics argue that the system still allows problematic stones to pass through under the guise of legitimacy. Meanwhile, the human toll continues. Many miners in regions labelled conflict-free still face poverty, dangerous working conditions, and minimal economic payoff. A diamond may be certified, but the life of the person who mined it could still be marked by exploitation. Economic inequality in the supply chain. The value created by diamonds is tremendous, but it is distributed very unevenly. On one end of the supply chain are corporate giants, De Beers, Alrosa, Russia, Rio Tinto, Australia, among others, who extract, cut, and distribute billions in value. On the other end are local miners, often in remote, impoverished communities, who struggle to gain any significant share. Many of the world's diamond miners operate in artisanal or small-scale mines. These miners often dig by hand or with minimal tools, working in hazardous conditions, without formal contracts, and with little protection. Their pay can be extraordinarily low compared to the value of the stones they extract. The difference in economic value between raw stones and polished gems is enormous, and yet most of the profit never reaches these miners. In Botswana, which produces a significant portion of the world's diamonds, the government has formed a joint venture with De Beers called Debswana. While this has generated national revenue, the structure inherently links the country's economic fortunes to a dominant multinational corporation. This dependency raises questions. Who truly owns the value created, and who benefits most from it? Furthermore, despite the immense wealth generated by diamonds, wealth distribution globally remains skewed. Marketing and brand power funnel high markups toward retailers and luxury markets in the US, Europe, and Asia, while extraction regions remain marginalized. This systemic imbalance reinforces the power of major companies and perpetuates inequality for those at the very start of the supply chain. Environmental devastation. Diamonds are born deep in the earth, but mining brings them to the surface at an enormous environmental cost. Large-scale operations, whether open pit mines or alluvial digging, strip vegetation, displace topsoil, and disrupt natural watercourses. Rivers are diverted, soils are destabilized, and water systems are contaminated with sediment or toxic chemicals used in the extraction process. Chemicals like mercury and cyanide, sometimes used in artisanal mining, pose grave environmental risks. They pollute rivers, poison aquatic life, and harm communities who rely on these waterways. Forests are cleared, causing habitat loss and pressure on biodiversity. In some regions, once lush ecosystems become scarred by mining scars, irreversibly altered by human activity. Local communities suffer disproportionately. Their water may be polluted, their land degraded. In some cases, indigenous populations are forcibly relocated to make way for mining projects. The environmental damage is often not factored into the market price of diamonds, meaning consumers pay for the luxury, but not for the ecological cost. Some sectors of the industry attempt to offer a more sustainable path forward. Lab-grown diamonds, produced in controlled environments, avoid many of the ecological harms associated with traditional mining. They don't require massive dig sites, do not displace communities, and bypass the need for hazardous chemicals. Yet, traditional diamond corporations have complex reactions to this trend. On one hand, investing in synthetic lines. On the other, resisting wholesale disruption of the legacy pricing system they built. Regulatory complexities and corporate strategies. The diamond industry operates within a highly opaque and complex global framework. Ownership structures are often labyrinthine, with shell companies and layered intermediaries hiding who really benefits from profits. In many producing countries, government-owned or state-affiliated entities play a major role. But accountability is mixed, and wealth often flows out of poor regions into private coffers. De Beers itself has faced serious accusations over decades of pricing collusion and cartel behavior. In some jurisdictions, class action lawsuits allege that the company manipulated diamond prices by restricting supply and coordinating sales strategies. While some legal cases have been settled, critics say that antitrust actions have rarely dismantled the structural power of these corporations. The Kimberley process, while a landmark initiative, remains limited. It captures only a subset of ethical concerns, mainly the connection between diamonds and armed conflict. But it does not comprehensively regulate labor practices, environmental damage, or coercion in diamond-producing countries. Some civil society groups and human rights advocates demand a more holistic framework, one that mandates real traceability, transparency of ownership, living wages for miners, and ecological restoration. Yet, entrenched interests resist. The legacy players in the diamond trade have vast resources, institutional power, and established relationships. Unraveling decades of supply control, marketing narratives, and opaque corporate structures is enormously challenging. Disruption and the rise of synthetic diamonds. In recent years, lab-grown diamonds, sometimes called synthetic or cultured diamonds, have emerged as a powerful disruptor. These gems are chemically and physically identical to mined diamonds, but they are produced in laboratories through technological processes that take weeks rather than billions of years. Because they do not require large-scale mining, they have a much lower environmental footprint. These lab-grown stones are also typically more affordable, putting pressure on the traditional diamond pricing model. For decades, mined diamonds have justified exponential markups based on perceived rarity, but synthetics challenge that narrative. As their acceptance grows, both consumers and industry insiders are forced to reconsider the value proposition of mined diamonds. Some major players have already responded. A few big companies have developed their own synthetic diamond lines. Yet, they walk a tightrope. How do they promote ethical alternatives without undermining the high-margin business they built on mined stones? There is tension between innovation and preservation of the old model. Transparency solutions are also emerging. Technology like blockchain is being explored to track a diamond from the mine all the way to the retail showcase. This could, in theory, increase accountability, reduce the flow of illicit or unethical stones, and allow consumers to verify the origins of their diamonds. But adoption is slow, and real structural change remains difficult when so much power is held by established interests. Diamonds shine brilliantly, but their story is not so bright. The global diamond industry is a carefully constructed economic empire, one built on the control of supply, the manipulation of demand, and the exploitation of people and planet. From De Beers' early monopoly to the horrors of blood diamonds, from environmental devastation to modern regulatory loopholes, the chain that links dusty mines to dazzling jewelry is forged in power, inequality, and secrecy. Yet change is possible. Lab-grown diamonds offer a more ethical alternative. Increased consumer awareness, traceability technology, and pressure from civil society may weaken the old, tightly controlled system. But the industry's legacy is deep, and so is its resistance to disruption. As consumers, we have a choice. We can continue to buy into the romantic myth of diamonds, or we can see the truth behind the sparkle. The next time you look at a diamond, remember, beauty may be eternal, but the cost is not invisible. Diamonds may last forever, but their human and ecological price should not.